If the Ottawa Senators didn't have bad luck with injuries, they'd have no luck at all. I'm Ross Levitan alongside Brandon Piller here for immediate reaction to the news that Cam Talbot will be out anywhere from the next 3 to 7 weeks with a fractured rib suffered in practice. Pilsy, what was your thoughts when you heard the news?
This is such brutal news, Ross. I mean, we thought for once we finally made it through training camp, rookie camp, and preseason without a serious major injury. The Ottawa Senators were not that lucky, unfortunately, as yes, Cam Talbot, he's going to be out quite a while here, and the Senators thought they shored up their goaltending duo with getting two veterans in Forsberg and Talbot. Not to say that they haven't, but they're going to be without Talbot to start this year, and Sens fans, we all know the implications of how important it is to have a hot start this year after two brutal starts in the past few seasons. So this is going to make things a lot harder.
So initially, the Ottawa Senators tweeted out, and we'll get to the corresponding move, claiming goaltender Magnus Hellberg off waivers from Seattle. But the Sens tweeted out it was an upper body injury, and he will be out 5 to 7 weeks. 6 weeks from now, it will be November 10th. So we're looking at the first 20 games of the year. But later on, Darren Dreger said it's believed to be a fractured rib, and that depending on how it heals, it could only be 3 to 4 weeks. Now, I don't want to get Sens fans excited because I think it's more likely that the team's going to put out an accurate depiction. That to say, it is dependent on how the body heals. We know Cam Talbot, already 35 years old. But if it's only 3 weeks, you're looking at like the first 5 to 7 games of the regular season, as we are still 10 days away right now from that game in Buffalo. But if it's on the long end, you're getting closer to December. The silver lining in this is that Ottawa's first back-to-back isn't until December 2nd or 3rd. So, Anton Forsberg, you're on the clock.
Yeah, Anton Forsberg yet again is going to have to carry a lot of this weight on his shoulders after last season with Matt Murray's health being off and on and Philip Gustafsson not quite ready. At least he's used to this role, and hey, he's got the bigger contract of Cam Talbot. He kind of understands that he was going to be at least playing a good chunk of these games. And Ross, I think personally the 3 to 4 weeks probably, Brandon Piller, not a doctor. I'm not sure exactly how this is all going to go, but I think the Senators are going to be much more conservative. I don't think they're going to be rushing Cam Talbot back. Veteran goalie, 1-year contract, big hopes for the Ottawa Senators this year. And I think, if anything, they're going to give him extra time because, like you mentioned, no back-to-backs for quite a while. So I think they have confidence in Anton Forsberg, and there's no reason why they shouldn't.
And it was last Saturday, apparently, that he suffered the injury. So that would have been the game he played against Toronto. However, he practiced through it all week long in pain until realizing, hey, the x-ray determined it's fractured. So that to me says, you know what? Maybe it was the playoffs, he played through it, but it is smart to just shut it down, get it set out. Because it did kind of seem strange. DJ Smith had initially announced him as the starter against Montreal on Saturday, and then pulled back and said, you know what, if it was regular season, he'd play, but we're just going to be careful. And then you get the note that it's 5 to 7 weeks. What? So now the pressure's on Anton Forsberg. It does almost feel, and I know it was in the season versus now, but I'm getting a little bit of the Mike Condon vibes on here, where he played 27 straight games down the stretch. I don't know, and we'll get to Magnus Hellberg a little bit inside of who he is and why he seems to be a decent pickup in this situation. But I don't think they play him more than 5 games, whether it's 20 or 25 games that he misses. I think this is really going to be all on Anton Forsberg to get them through the first part of the season unscathed.
Yeah, I think we'll see Magnus Hellberg maybe play some games up against some weaker opponents, right? Like give Anton Forsberg a bit of a break in between some tough schedules. Maybe on the road, we'll see Hellberg play here. But Hellberg, to me, Ross, gives me more vibes of, well, Anton Forsberg, a guy they picked up off waivers, a veteran goalie that hadn't had too much of a chance in the NHL. Now, Forsberg did have much more games than Magnus Hellberg did. But the flip side is Hellberg has played in the KHL for quite a long time. And not only has he played there, but he dominated there. His stats in the KHL are very impressive from 2017 on to 2022. Most of his seasons, last year a bit of a shaky one, but still good stats. Most of his seasons, like 34 games played, a 1.32 goals against, 940 save percentage. Next year, 26 games played, 1.7 goals against, 21 games the next year, 1.89. Like, he's been able to put up consistent numbers. And then if you look at his playoff stats, all of his seasons are in the playoffs, goals against under 2. So this guy can really shut the door when need be. Now, how well can he translate those KHL stats to the NHL? This is giving me a little bit of flashbacks of Danny Taylor, Ross, when Danny Taylor had amazing KHL stats and the Sens brought him over. I was fired up about that, but as we all know, it didn't exactly work out very well. But I think with Hellberg, you're looking at a guy with size at 6'6", 209 pounds. And Ross, hashtag goalie friendly show, one of our favorite sayings is look good, play good. Well, he's got look good down for sure in the NHL. Maybe pull up some of his setups, Ross, because they are absolutely stunning.
Yes. So with the Detroit Red Wings last year, he came back and played one game at the end of the season. I'm not sure exactly how or why he left the KHL. Probably good that he did, but he was a member of the Detroit Red Wings briefly, and that setup is unreal. Just flip the logo, put it on its side, and then I'm going to pull up as well here. His Seattle Kraken gear is absolutely ridiculous when you look at it here. I'm going to pull it up, but I will tell you as well, kind of a cool connection between the two Swedes. Anton Forsberg and Magnus Hellberg were, I keep mixing up Marcus Hogberg and Magnus Hellberg. It's a bit of a tongue twister for me here. But when you look at Hellberg's they were both drafted in 2011. Funny enough, it was Hellberg who was drafted 38th overall, and it was 188th where we saw Anton Forsberg. I'm kind of talking in circles because I couldn't believe it when I pulled up the 2011 draft. Guess who went the exact pick after Hellberg?
2011? Oh God, I have no idea.
It's tough. Anyway, it's a goalie and one who had a bit better of a career. I think it's fair to say it was John Gibson went the next pick
nice.
with the Anaheim Ducks. But that's to say, here you go. There's the setup with Seattle. It looks absolutely sick.
It's too bad he won't get a chance to wear them because that is a sick setup. And what I appreciate about Hellberg as well, Ross, is he keeps the design going on the blocker. That's something that goalies don't utilize enough. That's a nice flat space to work with, and he keeps the awesome design kind of matched with the pads there.
He wore it once, and he made 15 saves on 15 shots, sharing a shutout with Philip Grubauer in a 3-0 win over the Calgary Flames in preseason action. You mentioned Hellberg being 31. I think that helps big time when you're looking at the confidence that he's going to have coming in a tough position, no doubt. Like, obviously, I made the joke on Twitter at Sens Central when Joey Decor, why wasn't it Joey Decor, right? We want Dax back. And with Martin Jones and Philip Grubauer, not even to mention the now injured former Senator, Chris Drieger, like, they're going to have to move some guys around. So it's unfortunate from that standpoint. We'd love Dax. We want to have him back. However, I think you'd probably trust a 31-year-old in this position rather than a 23-year-old.
Oh, big time. And Hellberg, he's a pro. Like, sure, the KHL is different than the NHL, but he's lived that pro life. He's been relied upon. He's faced better competition. And he's a guy, too, once Talbot comes back and the Senators feel like there's not really a spot for Hellberg, if you have to let him go by the wayside, it's not a big deal. Or maybe you decide, hey, there's more value keeping Hellberg around as opposed to a guy like Antoine Bibeau. I'm not sure, but it gives you options. That's for sure. So, from having a guy, Ross, that we didn't really know much about, in Magnus Hellberg, I'm actually coming around to this pickup, and it seems like a savvy move.
Well, we're going to find out more because he's been claimed on waivers, and I would expect him to meet the team tomorrow in Montreal. For more on this, you can follow us on Twitter at Sens Central, and our newest episode is available on all podcast platforms. We put that out maybe 10 minutes before this news came, and as a hashtag goalie-friendly show, you know we had to come break this down as big news. Cam Talbot is out with a fractured rib, anywhere from 5 to 7 weeks, which is what the Senators put out there as a timeline, or Darren Dreger saying, depending on how it heals, maybe it's closer to 3 to 4 weeks as well. You know what? Could be. It happened in the game against Toronto, so that is a week ago. However, I'm sure practicing with it wasn't the best for it, but that to say, maybe they're counting that first week as a part of his recovery. I got my fingers crossed because Cam Talbot is an important piece of this Ottawa Senators team. The Sens, Love their Swedish goalies, Pilsy. And to me, the absolute height of this pickup, maybe we've got an Anders Nielsen on our hands, but maybe we have a Marcus Hellberg.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one or the other of those, but I'm confident in Magnus Hellberg here. So I'm giving him clean slate. I think it's going to be great to have at least someone, because Sogard's not ready for that backup role, right? And we want him getting major starts in the AHL as the number one guy. So this was the right move for sure.
All right, we'll have more on Wednesday, Locked On Senators, because tomorrow we've got a special edition of our show with the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast. We know that they're in time to do your draft coming up, and we probably talk about Cam Talbot, but just ignore that. Everything else, they're going to help you with your keepers, with guys who you should stay away from, and a whole lot more. And for more, follow us on Twitter at Sens Central. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been an unfortunate immediate reaction following the news of Cam Talbot's injury and Magnus Hellberg claimed by the Ottawa Senators. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.